You're watching the BU Start Now podcast with San Artina. This is your host, Sarah Ashley Neal. Our guest today is a career clarity and transition coach who has written her own job spec and terms and conditions. Winning Career Coach of the Year 2022 in Australia, she's been featured on radio and television, recognised as one of the 10 best female coaches to follow. Trained in HR in the UK, she spent many years in Australia working across industry before becoming one of LinkedIn's top voices in job search and careers, helping individuals to explore what fulfilment at work really means to them. Known for her leadership and no-fluff approach, let me introduce you to Elizabeth Houghton. Hi Elizabeth, how are you? Welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Sarah. It's lovely to be here with you.
That's brilliant. So what time is it where you are? You're in Australia, aren't you?
I am. So it's just gone 7:15 at night.
7:15. So what are we? 9 hours? 9 hours behind you. So I've just had my breakfast and you've probably just eaten, haven't you? So
I have.
We're raring to go.
My dinner with my glass of wine, so I'm ready to go.
Good on you. So listeners, we've got a wonderful guest ahead of us here. Firstly, I wanted to say congratulations. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have you just won an award in Australia?
I did on Monday. So it was Influential Businesswoman Award for 2022. Mine was for career coach because that's what I do. And it's actually the second year I've won it. So I won it last year as well. And again, this year, they've recognised me for what I've been doing in the career space, which is just, mind-blowing. It's one of those things that they email you and they're like, do you want to take part? And I'm like, sure. And then I don't do anything and it goes to voting and they check out what you're doing on your website and LinkedIn and obviously do all their checks in the background and then people have to vote for you. And here we are on Monday. Their press release went out and my name was on it. And I was like, oh. And then I have all the issues all my clients have. Yeah, I had all the issues all my clients have of imposter syndrome, not thinking you're good enough. Oh my God, they should have recognised another coach, not me. And it just proves that all of us coaches have the same issues. We just have the tools to work through them really, really quickly. And because of our experiences, we can help other people as well. So we are not perfect either. We have our own moments of, oh no.
That's actually a good point, and it's lovely that you've raised that and say, we're not perfect because you are human, and people do relate to human experiences, don't they? And bouncing back, and I mean, I talk about resilience, and you talk about resilience. We'll get onto all these lovely topics, but it is about recognizing. It's about being able to recognize that you're feeling a certain way, or even a feeling has come over you, and thinking, right, how do I sort of get back on track? And people admire that, and that's what I think why you're an inspiration, really.
Thank you. I find it easy. It was really interesting. I just posted it on social media, and I don't know, because I'm now so used to using social media for my business that I've kind of got over that icky, I guess that feeling of gracefulness maybe. And I don't know if it's the mix between growing up in the UK and now being here in Australia. Like, there is that culture of like not being graceful and saying, oh my God, you're amazing, where we all 100% should shine a light on what we're doing. So just posting on social media was easy. And then I started getting all these texts and phone calls from friends going, why didn't you tell me? I saw you yesterday. Why didn't you tell me? And I was like, couldn't tell you. I feel weird. Let's not have this conversation.
Oh, bless. Well, I'm all for, there's a difference, isn't there, between being sort of arrogant and overconfident and all these other fancy words that are out there, which are real words, but we're not going to get myself. Well, I'm not going to get myself in trouble and start touching on some of them. But I've got it in front of me because there's only so much, listeners, that I'm actually going to remember off the top of my head. But this lovely lady, I mean, she's, what is it? Yes, you've won Career Coach. That's this year. Acquisition International magazine. You've been featured on Fox, NBC, CBS. I mean, all these acronyms. I can make a few up. I don't know if the listeners know what I'm talking about then. And also, years ago, LinkedIn recognised you as one of the top 20 inspiring people on social media,
Yeah,
and that's
it
years ago.
feels like years ago, doesn't it? It's not though. It was only the beginning of this year. So that was January, LinkedIn recognized me. And it does feel like
Right.
years ago. And I believe maybe the one you're referring to, I think
There's
was either a
another
year
one,
or 2 years ago, was Yahoo Finance
Yahoo
recognized me in
Finance.
their top 10 coaches to watch out for in Australia.
Now, listeners may be thinking, why have I got Elizabeth on the show today talking about career? But what I just want to clarify is that well-being is about health, happiness, and comfort. And I think sometimes we think, oh, it's just about the waistline, and we so focus on body and image and everything else around well-being and wellness. Excuse me. We begin to think, well, rather, we've got to remember that, without aspiring to a career or a satisfying job, or we don't pay the bills, we don't have that holiday, we don't have the roof over our heads, we don't look after our families maybe in the way we'd like. So, money to me is energy, but at the end of the day, work is what we do to create an income. So, Elizabeth, you are here because you've got some lovely stories to share, and I think the listeners would like to know more about what is a career transitional coach. Can you tell us, what are you?
What am I? Well, I don't like to be defined by my career, but let's go with that. It's
No,
such an easy thing to do, isn't it? And
start
I
with
talk to
that. There's
people
more.
all the time who say, when you go, oh, it's lovely to meet you, and they introduce themselves and they're like, I'm just a lawyer. You're not just anything, and your profession doesn't define you. But what I do as a career transition coach is I work with people, generally speaking, over like an 8-week period. Sometimes it's a bit longer, depending on what's going on for them, around figuring out what their values are, what is going to bring them fulfillment, and trying to work out, well, how does that fit? Like, what skill set do you have? What transferable skills do you have from your past experience that you could take into a new role? And that new role doesn't have to be the same as what you're doing. It might be that we just need to make some tweaks, and you need to work for a different company that has a different value set that aligns with yours more. Or it could be going to do something completely different. So we work through that for a period of time to figure out, okay, this is the sweet spot. This is the thing you're really excited about doing, and you have the skills and the capability to get started. Personal development is part of all of us. We're never experts at what we do. We've always got something else to learn and grow, but enough to get started. And then it's working with, okay, well, how do you reposition yourself if you're going into a new market and a new role? If everyone knows you as, like I used to be known as the HR person, right? I worked in HR for over a decade, and people just knew me, oh, that's what Elizabeth does. Elizabeth's a HR person. And it's taken me a really long time to break that. I'm not the HR person, not anymore. But like when I left HR, I had people calling me up going, oh my God, why are you doing that? You're crazy. But you have to reposition yourself in your market, in the community, to say, this is now what I'm doing. This is my why. This is the value I bring. And that's what I work with people on. So their LinkedIn branding, their resumes, cover letters, how to answer those behavioral questions and interviews as well, of repositioning their story and their narrative in a way that's going to support them get the role they are now looking to have. So that's what I do in a small nutshell.
I was going to say, it's in a very, very small nutshell, isn't it? Again, listeners know we do research on our guests, etc., and we want to get the wording right, etc. But also, you talk about being a career clarity coach, helping people with their confidence, helping them to look at limiting beliefs, and as a coach, you bring, you're holistic as well, aren't you? You're bringing, in essence, their well-being into it, while focusing on that, on their role that they want, their dreams.
Yeah, well, definitely.
Selling the dream, as it were.
And that's what kind of that. I guess that was my transition. So I worked in HR for over 10 years. As I said, went to uni. I studied HR. It just made sense to go into HR and progress my career. But I probably knew really early on that HR wasn't really my happy place. I was good at it. Well, I like to think I was good at it. I stayed employed, kept getting jobs. and that keeps you kind of like, that's your comfort zone, right? You're doing something that you've studied at university, and then you kind of get stuck because you've got this thing, you touched on it, about money, right? You've got this thing that's paying your bills, it's providing you with a lifestyle. Everyone around you is looking at you going, oh my God, you're killing it, you're doing a really good job. It makes logical sense what you're doing to the community in which you have around you. But I actually was desperately unhappy. I remember I had a few roles in the middle period of my career when I was in that phase of, am I staying? Am I going? I knew I should go, but I was not quite sure I should go. Well, I would just cry on my way to work. I would get up in the morning, get in my car, and cry all the way to work. Dry off my tears as I got to the car park, sorted myself out, I walked into the office and get on with my day. And that was every day for over 6 months. I did that because I wasn't happy. And then I started learning more about coaching. And I initially kind of went into the leadership coaching space, heading up HR at that time. It was a comfortable transition to start going into leadership coaching when you've had a corporate role like that, and I could do it within my current HR role. Like I could start coaching leaders on how to be better leaders, but that still didn't sit quite right for me. And what really spurred me on was learning so much about workplace burnout, learning about the impact that our world of work has on our wellness. Yes, it has to pay our bills, right? Like, let's not, that's the fundamental fact, right? We all need money.
Sugar-coated.
Let's not sugarcoat it. Like, we all need money. But do we need money at the cost of our mental health?
Good point.
And that was, for me, that was my, you know what, if I can help people have a career, or it doesn't even have to be a career. You don't have to have careers. You can just have jobs. If you're happy having a job, that is fine. Like, you don't need a vacation. You don't need a career. But if I can find that sweet spot for someone where they get up on a Monday morning and they're semi-excited, if not really excited about what the weeks will hold. We'll all have those Monday mornings when it's raining outside and we don't want to get up. But for the most part, pretty happy about, going to work and not knowing what's going to happen that day, or knowing what's going to happen, and be excited about the impact that they can make and being fulfilled. How is that going to help all of us from our mental health? Are we going to be able, if we can find everyone's sweet spot, is workplace burnout going to be a thing of the past? Are we going to reduce work-related stress? And that for me was my driving force around it. Of, we spend so much time at work, and to be sat at our desks hating what we do, the impact that has on us, I feel we underestimate. And yes, we hear all these buzzwords like burnout, workplace burnout, work-related stress, and we kind of hear them going, they're real, right? That's not happening to someone else. This can happen to anyone. It's not, that thing that you just read about in the news. Like, it's actually happening. So how do we stop that from happening? And
there is stigma, isn't there?
So
sorry, Elizabeth, cutting in. It's just there can be stigma and self-stigma around that, thinking, oh, I don't want to tell people how I'm really feeling. I don't want to even share the truth myself. I should pull myself together here. And you also talked about the word being excited. To be excited to get up in the morning, a lot of us aren't, are we? And and again, we don't all work a 5-day week or start work on a Monday, but obviously, Sunday, we just use Sunday. Your Sunday could be a Friday. In certain cultures they are. So it's about not fearing and dreading getting up, and it might not even be because something isn't going right for them at work, or they're concerned about working with colleagues, or they've got challenges or problems. It might just be not being satisfied, and here we go again, we're on the treadmill. It's not always got to be a traumatic experience to go to work on a Monday. It's just, I don't want to go.
And if you ever feel like that, start thinking about why you don't want to go, and do you need to do something else? And that is it. And it's also that But the impact that
Mm-hmm.
feeling for you then has on the people you live with, the people you
Yes.
interact with. If you've
Yes.
got, and I call it, it's been coined recently, the Sunday scaries. I'm not sure I like that phrase. I normally call it
Not
Sunday
heard that.
afternoon dread. But there's quite a lot of articles now calling it the Sunday scaries. Um, if you start to feel this anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
worry about going back to work halfway through whatever your Sunday is, it's, for argument's sake, it's easier to just say it's a Sunday. What impact does that have on the people around you? How are you
Mm-hmm.
interacting with those people? Are you being fully present with the people that you get to spend your Sunday with? Are you getting a bit short and grumpy with them because you've got this thing that's hanging over you that
Mm-hmm.
you know is going to come the next day when you wake up? So are you actually no longer enjoying your life to its fullest
Mm-hmm.
outside of your job? Like, jobs should enable our lifestyles. They shouldn't dictate them.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't override them. They shouldn't really affect them. They should enable us to have the lifestyle we want. But the second they start to impact on that lifestyle, from having to work too many hours, or
Mm-hmm.
just how we're feeling and behaving and how we're then present or not present, that's not
Yeah.
okay, right?
No. And it's therefore, and again, which is why, by the end of our conversation, we're going to, hope listeners, and they probably do already, but many of them might be thinking, gosh, actually, yeah, when I stop and think about it, that's affecting my relationship. I actually don't feel like coming home and exercising. I don't feel
Yeah.
like actually eating as well as I want to.
Mm.
I'm actually going to spend more money. Maybe some people go, oh, I'm just going to, oh, whatever, So it can start impacting. And even in the work I do, I mean, I talk about doing a wellbeing landscape and actually doing a little bit of a risk assessment sometimes just to see what it is that's really impacting on different areas of your well-being,
Mm.
because it's not that we're always not having that honest conversation with ourselves. We might just not have given it time. We might not have just given our career and our role attention. It goes into 1 year and another year. You talk about, or rather, I know you're a happy person, aren't you, Elizabeth?
Try to be.
You're a happy person. Who knows behind closed doors? But overall, you're a joy to talk to, and you're also in your articles and your writing. I mean, you've done over 60 articles on LinkedIn, and you always have a positive slant, but with some constructive, content or topics.
Mm.
And I know you've picked up on a report. I think, sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, but you put a report on happiness, and you were talking
Yeah.
about where that was driven from. Was it passion or competency? But is this report touched on how construction workers were some of the happiest people in the world?
Mm.
Why did they comment on that? What's their reasoning? What's your thoughts
Okay.
too?
I'm gonna have to remember the three key points that came out of that now that I read last week.
No,
But
I said put you on the
yes,
spot a little bit.
no,
So
that's fine. So they did a study of over 30,000 workers in a variety of industries to understand what brings happiness, what makes someone happy. And it
mhm,
wasn't, they never asked anyone the question, do you enjoy your job, right? That was not part of their research, but it was
okay.
around the happiness side. And what came out of that was construction workers are apparently the happiest people. Who knew? But it's about relationships
Mhm,
and that camaraderie you have at work, right? So
mhm,
generally speaking, we've probably all walked past a building site, and they're chatting away, they're laughing, they're joking about, going to be really stereotypical here, and I apologize to all women builders out there, but it's lads being lads, right? They're having a good time because they have these close-knit relationships at work. Now, that doesn't mean that they're
mhm,
going down the pub with these people after work, but it means while they're at work, they can have a joke, they can have a laugh, they help and support each other, they work together. So if we think of a construction site, all of the trade skills that come together to build a house. So we've got the people that can lay the foundations, and then we have the bricklayers, and then we have the roofers and plumbers and electricians and
mhm,
plasterers and painters and window fitters. But they all have their role to play. They all have
Mm-hmm.
their expertise in that. They all have their skill that they get to come and use every single day. And they have to work together because there's a time frame, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
people putting up the plasterboard can't put up the plasterboard until the walls and the studding and the installation is in, right?
Gosh, you know your stuff. You know
I
your
don't know if
stuff.
I do. Some
Continue.
builder's going to be listening to this going, she does not know what she's talking about. But they
Disclaimer
have to
alert, disclaimer
all,
alert.
don't build a
It's just
house
a
in the way I've described.
conversation.
But they all have to work together in harmony to achieve a product, right?
Yes,
And
I
that was
like
another
that.
thing that came out of it, of taking a concept and being able to create something. So you've got strong workplace relationships, and then the ability to turn an idea or a concept into reality.
Mm-hmm.
Builders get to do that, right? So they get to be
Mm.
creative. You wouldn't necessarily think as a builder as being creative, but they get to use that creativity with their specialized skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And then sunshine. They get to be
Yeah,
outdoors. And
outdoors
right
more.
now in the
So
UK, I understand you guys are having a tremendous heat wave.
we are.
And sunshine is important, right? Like if we go
Mm-hmm.
back to the wellness side, and for at least a decade, people have been talking about go for your 20-minute walk at lunchtime. It's really good for you. And like the main focus of that has been on exercise, right? Vicarious exercise, having movement in your day. And that is hugely important. But another
Yes.
part of it is be outside, get your vitamin D, and that helps us be happier. So those were the three main points as far as I
Okay.
recall coming
Well
out of that.
done.
Now, it doesn't mean you have to be a construction worker to be happy at work, right?
No,
It doesn't,
no.
because we can have really good workplace relationships in any industry, right? We can have
Mm-hmm.
a joke and a laugh. If we're working with people that we have value alignment with and we enjoy being around, we can
Mm-hmm.
have that. And again, this isn't about going down the pub and inviting to birthday parties and having them at your wedding. This is about in that environment of
Mm-hmm.
work, you trust,
Mm-hmm.
respect, and you can have a little bit of fun during your day. You enjoy the conversations that happen.
Yeah.
How can every profession have like a concept idea into creation? And we actually all can. We all have a role to play. We we are all doing something, and we might not think, oh, that's really creative. We might not sit there and think that. If you think about an accountant, besides creative accountancy, um,
Mm-hmm.
what is an accountant getting to create or build? But they are, though. They're getting to use their skill set to support the business, to ensure the business can make smart financial decisions. I'm sure they have lots of spreadsheets and graphs as well to help along the way. But they're helping with the foundations of a successful business, right? They're
Yes.
helping
Yes.
do that. And then the
Mm-hmm.
outside sunshine. Go outside, get some sunshine. In your lunch break, have walking meetings or whatever you can do to get outside. So
Mm-hmm.
we can actually build those things, generally speaking, into almost every role that exists. We just don't for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
We get too stuck at
And
our desk. I used to be like, I never used to go outside. I would eat my lunch on my desk. I was busy, right? I didn't have time for that.
mm-hmm.
Of course I did.
No.
Everyone does.
And
It's a choice.
yeah, and we are driven by deadlines. We are driven by our workload. But I think again we have to sort of be careful and not make excuses all the time, or get into a bit of a blame culture, whether that's blaming your boss or somebody else or yourself. And I know you work with companies and you also work with individuals, and somewhere at some point we all aspire to a little bit of leadership. We're not, whether you want to say we're a born leader, we don't cultivate that. We if we were all doing the same thing, we wouldn't need, or if we're all good at everything, we wouldn't need anybody. We wouldn't need you, because I wouldn't need me. We'd all be waking up and going, yeah, I'm going to change my career today. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to do this, boom, 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 boom. And we don't. So we need people like you. Thank you for explaining a little bit about that. Touching on happiness still, how do you feel about hobbies? Because when people think about, I'm stuck in my job, I don't want to do this job work anymore. I'm really good at doing cooking. I'm going to now become a chef. Now, nothing wrong with that if you actually want to pursue a career like that. because a lot of people out there and people with good intentions say, if you're really good at something and you enjoy it, you can go and carve a career out it. I did. I enjoy well-being, but it doesn't work for everybody, does it? So what's
And
your
this is
thoughts on that?
so this is a toss-up between passion and competency, right? And
Okay.
if you have a passion that you're competent about, so you're good at, so if you are a really
Okay.
good cook and you actually want to turn it into something you make money out of, then that is amazing, right? If you are able to pull your skills together into your passion, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
you like, that's the cherry on the top of the trifle, right? Like, you've got it. But that isn't for all of us, right? I think I put in the post I did recently about the happiness study. I used to love, I still love to dance, right? I'm not going to be a prima ballerina. I am not going to be on stage. I am not going to make money out of dance. I'm probably not even that good at it. Might have been when I was very little, when I did like my grades and stuff and did exams and got medals. But now, no. So for me, it's a hobby. And it's
Hobby.
something that I purely just want to enjoy and do for
Mm-hmm.
myself, that brings me joy and fulfillment. I don't want it to be something that I then attach money to. Because the
Right.
second you start attaching money to things, it
Mm-hmm.
changes the way you feel about it. Because it just does. There's a different pressure then, right? You have to be
Mm-hmm.
really good because you've got a mortgage to pay potentially. Well, we've got bills, or you want to go to the movies at the weekend. And what's that these days? I don't know, like £20 to go to the movies, if not more. But all of a sudden, your hobby, the thing you love doing that's always brought you joy and calm and like just a nice, 45 minutes, whatever, whenever you've been doing it in your life, has become this thing that has to enable your lifestyle. So
Mm-hmm.
that is not always possible. It's not.
No.
Um, like I I have a really good friend of mine. She loves pottery, and she's going to kill me for saying this because she's going to know who I'm talking about. She loves pottery, and her designs are unique
Mm-hmm.
and very creative, let's say. And you would think, oh my God, that would be amazing. Like, you love doing it. You get so much joy about it. I love listening to her talk about it when she's gone to a pottery class, because like her face just lights up. But how many cups a week are you going to have to make and be able to sell
Mm-hmm.
to enable your lifestyle? So it just changes things about. So
Yes.
let's be realistic about our hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean you can't have them as a side hustle. So if you are doing something that you love, so if, especially if you are making something and you don't want 100 individual unique cups in your house, then by all
Sitting on
means,
the sideboard.
try and, yeah, right, collecting dust, right? Try and sell them. Set up an SD page, try and sell them. Enjoy that. If it is something you're like, you know what, I can really do this. I'm going to enjoy making 200 cups a week. They're not even unique anymore, because they now need to be uniform, because you're selling them in shops and people want, they don't want mismatched
Yeah.
cups. They want a set of 6. They're exactly the same. If that's going to bring you joy, go and do it. But
Mm-hmm.
seriously, sit back and reflect on, is it a hobby?
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to keep it as a hobby? Or do you want to turn it into something else? If you want to turn it into something else, that is amazing, and it can work for people. I love what I do. I absolutely love being a career coach, and I love my life that I have from that and the people I get to interact with every day. But I still have hobbies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
And I
it is not
think
my hobby.
no, thank you for that, because I think we do also need hobbies, and sometimes we think, oh, if we do this all the time, we'll enjoy it. But actually, sometimes it takes the fun out of it. But no, thank you for that. May we just go back a little bit, just touch on a little bit of your HR background from the point of view in HR? I mean, we've had COVID, and you've launched your business pre-COVID, but you know, but for years and years, I mean, HR, there's a lot of responsibility, and I I tend to say to people, you have to look after your own well-being too, without telling listeners or sharing any private stories or getting yourself in trouble with companies. It, you've been in I've looked. And I've talked to you before. You've been in lots of different HR roles, so you've got a lot of experience across industry. How's that impacted on your own well-being from time to time? Because you've got to deliver good news and bad news sometimes, haven't you?
Yeah.
Is there any time that comes
Golden
to
nuggets.
mind? Or?
Yeah, no, there is. So I'm going to pretense this with HR people are generally notoriously bad at looking after themselves. We are getting better, okay? And I'm seeing more and more HR people getting better. I even saw a post on LinkedIn the other day about whether or not should HR people have written into their terms and conditions or their employment contracts that they have access to 1 hour one-on-one counselling or therapy once a month to help them through that. Because generally speaking, everyone looks to a HR person, right? And that may be an individual within an organization or that may be a team. But whatever is going well, as a HR person, how do we reward this person? How do we keep them engaged? How do we thank them? Come to HR. We love those conversations, right? We love it when you come to us and tell us good news. But then on the other side, and what we hear more and more is, oh, this isn't quite going so well. And people come to HR. And people use HR sometimes more as I think everyone thinks we're trained psychologists and counsellors. We just have these faces that everyone just thinks they can talk to and open up to.
Like hairdressers.
Yeah, like hairdressers. Like that's it. Like we're just people you can talk to the most part. I don't know why. We go into a people-related profession, maybe. But who does the HR person turn to? Who's there when that HR person's having a bad day? Because they can't go out to the business and say, actually, you know what? I don't care about your problem today. I'm having a really terrible day. I nearly swore there. I'm having a really terrible day. I don't want to deal with what you're having to deal with in your team right now. You're a leader with 10 years experience. Sort it out yourself. HR person can't do that, right? Like we're not allowed to have bad days because we have to be there for all the people in the business. For me, this was probably why I struggled so much in my career. It was more on a personal level and the impact it had on me on a personal level. So I specialize in industrial relations. So all the legal stuff, and generally speaking with that, you're doing quite a lot of the firing. And my husband loves to introduce me and tell all his friends that I've probably fired more people than he's ever worked with. He finds it funny. But there is also probably some truth in that, unfortunately. And I remember the first time I had to do it, I was 22 and I got asked to go to an office that was in London and shut that office that day. 22 years old.
Hard.
I was told to go and tell everyone they no longer have a job. Now, this was a business that was everyone knew everyone, and you kind of, when you work in HR, you kind of know everyone, right? Like that's our jobs. So you know everyone's personal stories. You know who's just had a baby, who's trying to buy a house, who's trying to do all this stuff. And I went down to London to do that with no support and no backup. And that was really hard for me because I'm talking to people far older than me, who I respect, who I know what's going on in their personal lives. And I'm deeply trying to explain to them that they have not done anything wrong, that this is not a reflection on their work, it's not a reflection on their performance, it's not a reflection on anything to do with them. At some point, a business decision's got a little bit wrong and the business needs to backtrack and no longer have this office. Right. And I had some people come to me and go, well, do we go to the other office tomorrow then? They couldn't understand that shutting the office meant they didn't have a job anymore. It didn't mean they just come to the other office that we were still going to keep open. And that was really tough. And that was my first experience at it. And then moving on several years later, I'd gone through the termination of people lots and lots of times. I felt more confident with how that conversation could flow, how I could deal with the absolute respect for that individual in the room. And at this time, I was working for an organization that had several sites in Australia. And I travelled to several sites in Australia within 1 week, because it all had to be done within 1 week. Australia is a very big country. So this is multiple flights a day. I have mass flight anxiety. I hate flying. I will do it, but I hate flying. I had the flu. I hate flying. And I am telling people they no longer have jobs. Now, people react in all different ways. Some people were really happy because they're getting a good redundancy package, or it was coming up to the point where they were thinking about retiring anyway. So it was just like a nice severance package that they could retire a little bit early. Other people absolutely devastated. Then you have angry. And by the Friday, got to the middle of nowhere in Australia, let's say. It was the summer. It was very hot. I had 2 hours there before I needed to get my flight home. So I had a very short period. I've slept in 5 different hotels that week. I'm sick. I'm exhausted. I just want to go home. Not one person in my HR team has called me to ask if I'm okay, or to offer me any kind of check-in in the evening going, how's it going? Because they didn't want to have anything to do with it, because I was the employee relations specialist. Right. And I got to this site on the Friday, and I had the most beautiful conversation with this older team member who thankfully was actually really happy about their redundancy, because it just meant they could retire a little bit earlier, and they were fine with that. I am crying like a 2-year-old. I am exhausted, and this guy is being so kind to me. I can't keep it anymore. I just start crying. And he stands up, he puts his hand on my shoulder and goes, and he knows me, goes, Elizabeth, I'll just go get you a cup of tea, and we'll have a cup of tea and biscuit, and we're just sitting here for a little bit, just us two. It was my job to comfort and console him, not the other way around.
It's making me emotional.
Yeah, it makes me emotional thinking about it. And I hold him dear to my heart still today with what he did, because no one in my team, no one in the leadership team of the business, knowing what I was doing that week, had the courage to phone me, because they knew that week I had the worst job in the organization, and none of them called me. But this guy, who I'd just told no longer had a job, realized that I was broken, that I needed support. He went and got me a cup of tea, and we had a biscuit. I pulled myself back together, and we got through it, and he was incredible. He almost helped me through the conversation, because he was actually quite happy about it, and thank goodness for that. And it
kindness,
so much kindness. And it wasn't until I got back to work the following week that someone not in my team, a different leader in the business, came up to me and asked me how I was. So who helps the HR person?
Exactly. And again, I mean, there's some conversations we can have around that. They do. And I mean, you've got HR, but the idea and I've worked across industry in different roles, project management, marketing, events, and done contracting. And so private sector, public sector, and I'm only saying that to you listeners is just so that I do have an appreciation of working in companies. And there are some good leaders that are, senior management, whoever they are. I think everyone really at some point could do with having just some skills, learn some new skills around how to look out for each other. And I'm sure it does all go on. It certainly does go on, but we're not all
we're not all at the same level. I think sometimes we forget that we're people, and that goes for every role that we play. May that be HR, and lots of HR people will have very emotional stories, okay? And it's generally they're sometimes a lot more relatable because it's a people related role. It's something we can all think about.
Yes.
But we all have hard things that go on in our jobs. We all have deadlines, we make mistakes because we're only human, and it's how our leaders respond to those that really help and support us through that. And I can tell some lovely stories that I've had of it, some incredible leaders that I've worked with through my HR career. I know relatively early on, probably 3 to 4 years into my HR career, I had one of the best HR directors I have ever had the pleasure of working with. And I'd had a really bad day. Well, it wasn't really my bad day. Basically, everyone had decided on this day to come into my office and unload all of
Tested you to the
their
limits.
emotional baggage on me. And I'm a person that takes that on, right? And it is about resilience, but I will listen. I am very empathetic and sympathetic, and I understand and I will hear. But sometimes, unfortunately, people telling their stories, they just need to talk, but then they want you to fix it for them. So they kind of put the onus and responsibility on you.
So they come in with an expectation,
And that
possibly.
I can just wave a magic wand and make everything perfect. Wouldn't that be lovely, HR people listening to this, if we had those magic wands? And I didn't that day. There were certain things I couldn't deal with, and some people would share stuff in their personal lives with me. I'm like, God, besides coming around for dinner and having a chat with your family, I'm not really sure what I could do at this stage. So I was just a little bit emotionally spent by the end of the day. And this incredible HR director, she phoned me up, and she, don't know how she knew, maybe I was off emails a little bit longer than what I was always, but she knew something wasn't right. And we weren't in the same office. We weren't even in the same town, okay?
Right.
But she knew something was off with me. And she said to me, Elizabeth, we can't be all things to all people. And Rome wasn't built in a day. So we know it's not perfect. Go home, take the next 2 days off, turn your phone off, don't worry about your email, and look after you.
Lovely.
And that is so much more common now, right? Or wellness days. To have a leader tell you it's actually okay that you're not okay with the conversations you've had today, and that you need time to look after yourself. Wow.
There's so many things to talk about today. I want to just go into a couple of other things, but this does lead nicely. But just to really end that off, to say that HR isn't all doom and gloom. There's lots of great stuff you do for people. I don't want to bring the tone of this conversation where everyone's sort of already reaching out for the tissues, but and thinking HR all have incredibly hard jobs. A lot of roles, a lot of careers that have challenging times and challenging moments. But there are definitely some good times. If we can just, that is a segue into talking about your role as a coach now. You've clearly will have been able to bring a lot of your experiences from HR through into the work that you do. Are there any particular skills that you'll say, thank goodness I did HR, because I'm so much more equipped to help this person now?
Yeah, most definitely,
especially around
the stuff that I support people with that career change, promotion, resumes, recruitment, that kind of stuff. 100%. I was actually interviewed last week for a blog article on how to ask for a pay rise, or when is the best time to ask for a pay rise. And knowing as a HR person the inner workings of how organizational budgets work and potentially performance cycles works and stuff, that gives me so much insight to help and support and be able to help my clients position themselves. You can't just walk into, well, you can, but if you're just going to walk into your boss's office and they don't even know it's coming, and you say, I want £10,000 extra today or I'm leaving, your boss is probably going to say, thanks ever so much, bye, right? Because they're not going to want to be threatened. They're not going to, we caught them so off guard, their head is just spinning at that stage and didn't even know this conversation about money was going to come up. So that's definitely helped me in the sense of understanding how best to position those conversations, because people used to have them with me, and there was some that went really well and some that went really bad, and others you're just scratching your head trying to think, did that person really just come in and say that to me?
Yes.
So knowing how to manage those conversations in an effective way that's going to come out with a positive outcome is hugely helpful. But I've worked with and talked to so many different people in over a decade in HR, right? People that wouldn't naturally socialize with, and I've understood them. I've took the time to get to know them, and I think that really helps as a coach as well, being able to see things from someone else's perspective and not
Yes.
kind of put your view onto someone. Because we all have them, right? We're all judgy people. Let's be honest, we are, it's built into us.
Well, we've all got opinions, and opinions
We
are
all,
a form of
yeah, right.
judgment. It's how we do it,
It's
isn't it?
how we do it, right? But as a coach, our opinion is somewhat irrelevant, right? And that time in HR allowed me to kind of build up that ability to know when it was appropriate to share my opinion and know when to just kind of sit back and listen and do my best to understand that other person. So instead of jumping in, sometimes it is just about being silent and being still and
Having
understanding
that
what the
space,
hell
isn't
is
it?
going on around you to then be able to come forward with a very logical plan. And that having that experience and learning that and being able to hone that skill, I feel has really helped me hold space for people within my coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're actively listening, and as you were talking, I was wondering about again, coaching, because there is a difference between coaching and mentoring. You've got
Okay.
experience, and that can come in. But do you ever, just throwing this at you, do you ever sort of, you're talking to your client, it could be all different ages, we'll touch on that in a moment, and do you ever feel, just from what they're saying, you almost go, oh, you'd be so good at that, oh, I could steer you through that, but actually you don't know through conversation. I mean, unless, going back to cooking, unless they cooked you a meal and then you go, actually, that hobby is great, I love that meal. But because we've all got different opinions and we come from a sort of unconscious bias where it's our own perspectives, do you ever just want to say to them, this sounds really good?
Generally speaking, people come to a coach, may that be a career coach, a wellness coach, a business coach, whatever type of coach you're going to, because they are stuck, right? We're actually never stuck as individuals. We all know what we want. We know our own answers to our questions. We just don't create the space for ourselves to find that answer sometimes. I sometimes suggest, so like I was telling you about my friend who loves pottery and our whole face lights up when she talks about pottery. I know her really well, so I know it's never going to be her business, right? She actually loves what she does for a living. But you can kind of tell the difference between it being a hobby and something they want to keep as a hobby and it being something they could potentially actually want to turn into a job. And I will then use language like, oh, how did you feel about telling me that? I could see your facial expressions changed. What feelings were those that brought up? So it's not about telling someone, yes, you should go and be a chef. It's about getting them to recognize their own feelings when they're talking about it and letting them sit with those and decide what that means for themselves. So
Yes.
it's not really like the power of suggestion. It's about knowing the right way to phrase a question. It isn't going to lead someone, but it's going to enable them to explore a potential opportunity without telling them which way they should go. Because, like, we all remember it. Like, when we were kids, if our parents told us to do something, we'd do the exact opposite, right? Or we'd stamp our feet and throw a tantrum. I love a good old door slam, right? As a teenager, I loved that. But there was always something, right? And that stayed with us into adulthood. We don't like being told what to do, but we actually don't need to be. If we're having the right conversations with people and people are challenging us in the right way and
Yes.
allowing us to sit with our feelings around things and our thoughts around things, then we can actually make our own decisions. So it's just being really clever in reading someone's body language, being really aware of the language they're using, they're changing their facial expressions, they're changing their body language. Like, we all know when someone's getting excited, right? Like, we know
I
that.
can't stop
So,
moving, me.
so it's picking up on
Trying to
those
sit
subtle
still.
things and then knowing, oh, what question can I ask here to help them explore that
Explore.
without telling them this is what they should do? Because I don't know it's what they should do. They just
At the
might,
end of the
they
day,
might have
no.
taken 6 Red Bulls before they came onto a coaching call with me, and that's why they might be excited. I don't know, right? So let's ask in those questions to help them. But then at the same time,
Mhm.
it's realizing when someone is struggling to say something, when they're feeling a bit icky about saying something, why? What is that?
Mhm.
And being able to kind of articulate, oh, I noticed just then you struggled to tell me that. What happened there? What was going on inside when you said, I feel I'm worth more money than I'm being paid? Like, what is that? What's that kind of, what's holding you back in that space? And just kind of knowing what to pick up on and what questions to ask.
Absolutely. Gosh, you're in my head actually, because you're just covering off my questions, and I try to scatter them around, but I just love listening so much, and I think that's the key. It is active listening because, firstly, a lot of us, we really do want to be heard.
Hmm.
Secondly, we actually do like talking about ourselves when we're given an opportunity. And once we've got through the overwhelm, or got more confidence, and sometimes it's just nice if you're not used to having people listen to you, or you don't feel your perspectives are being heard. So sometimes it's just so good just to talk to somebody like yourself, who can paraphrase things back, or give them that comfortable silence, um, so that they can say, "Do you know what? I've answered my own question here."
Yeah, yeah.
And I've actually come up with that. Yeah, Elizabeth, thank you very much for all your time today. Think just again, overlapping some of the questions.
Mm.
Again, focusing, saying well-being, wellness. Do you think any of your clients, and just coming back to clients, do you work across demographics and ages, or do
Mhm.
you work with younger
Yep.
people? Just to
I
touch on
work,
that, and I'll ask you that
yeah,
question
so I
again.
do work across demographics and ages. Like my focus has always been on early professionals, so up to that
Okay.
30 age bracket, but I do work with
Hmm.
clients who are older also.
Okay.
But my marketing is more aimed at younger professionals. But I will work
Okay.
with anyone who
That
wants to work with me.
supports the No, lovely. That supports the way I asked you that question. Only from, but it's relevant to all ages. But as sometimes we assume as we get older, we start becoming more self-aware, and we don't necessarily. But then we can also have an epiphany overnight, and just sort of people go, "Gosh, they've changed. You've changed very quickly." But again, coming back to well-being, do you think your clients have a connection between being satisfied in a role or career, um, and their well-being? Do you think they ever put the two together?
Yeah.
And do you feel that you facilitate that sometimes during your conversations, to do you remind them that actually, there is a relationship between the two? Does that make
100%.
sense, that question?
Yeah, 100%. Our wellness is, there definitely is a relationship to our work and how we feel about work. And that comes through, like, generally speaking, someone seeks out a career coach because they're frustrated. So they know something is a little bit off and they're not necessarily that happy. And it's all of those other things you spoke about of, well, what happens then? We start to not eat mindfully. We're just
Hmm.
there snacking on what's everyone else's desk. We generally don't make the best food choices, so we start to eat more carb and sugar heavy foods
Hmm.
because we're just, they're feel good foods, right? They are feel good foods. They're comfort foods.
Hmm.
That's what we reach
It's
for. We
known. It's known. So if
we
some people have a sweet tooth, some people have a savoury.
yeah,
So it's one or the other.
we stop exercising. Like, so our work can have so much of an impact on everything. And although I don't outrightly in one of my coaching sessions go, oh, are you really depressed about your work, or are you really stressed, or are you like, I'm not a therapist, right? So there is a difference. So we have mentors,
Hmm.
coaches, and therapists and counselors, and we all have very different roles to play, and I do my best not to get too caught up in the therapy space. Like, that's,
Yes.
they can deal with that.
Yes.
Well, it naturally comes out, and I had the most beautiful wrap up call with a client of mine. It was our last session together, and she's found her thing. She had so many discoveries throughout the time we had together, and it was just stunning. And what she said to me just as we kind of left the calls together and wrapped everything up was, life is so much more fun now. I enjoy what I do.
Mm.
And that's what it's about, right?
Oh,
Life
your
should be
job's done,
fun.
isn't it?
Like, life should be fun. It doesn't have to be this thing that's hard and stressful. And, yes, we have moments of that, right? Like, no one lives in candy floss world with unicorns and fluffy clouds, right? Like, we don't live there. So we have ebbs and flows. But if we can wake up, or the majority of time throughout days, and go, gee, that was fun. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed that. Because we're being true to ourselves, we're making decisions that light us up and bring us excitement. We're
Mm-hmm.
being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to touch on that a little bit, around
Yes,
being
please.
authentic, if you don't mind. So
Please do.
we're conditioned, right? And I see lots of posts all the time about being your authentic self, and then I see lots of people jumping on, well, you can't be anyone else but your authentic self, can you? Hate those people. You actually can, because we are conditioned from a very young age to behave in certain ways. So
Mm-hmm.
if you were the chatty child at school, you're a chatterbox. You need to not talk so much. You're the child that's always off daydreaming. You've got your head in the clouds. You're going to be the future entrepreneur of the world, right? Like, you're going to be the richest person in your class. But you were told, get your head out of the clouds. So we pick
Mm-hmm.
up these little labels, don't we, as we go through our life,
Yes.
and we adapt our behavior to be socially acceptable within the circle in which we're in. So we actually do need to find our authentic self, because we've lost the child us along
Mm-hmm.
our journey, because we're generally people pleasers. We want people to like us, so we pick up on these little things that people say about us, and we adapt our personality. So the person that, was super chatty and may have been the next best public speaker in the world, TED Talks, traveling around the world talking about stuff because they're super chatty and super articulate, they've been told, don't be chatty. And if they've taken that on, then they're going to
Mm.
not be chatty. And how does that one comment change our journey? And I know that's getting into some
Yes.
really deep psychology there that, again, I don't
Mm.
completely
Yeah,
understand.
they're just other
But
topics. They're just other topics.
it's just, we do have to unpack ourselves. We do
Mm-hmm.
sometimes have to sit back and go, who am I,
Mm-hmm.
without all of that noise and that social pressure and those social expectations? Who are you when you're being true to yourself? And
Mm.
quite a lot of the time, although I focus on careers, quite a lot of the time that's what comes out of the sessions, the coaching sessions I have,
Yeah.
is people actually reconnect with their true selves and they can be more
Mm-hmm.
authentic. So then life is just more fun. They're not wearing all of these masks and all of these hats. They're just being themselves, and
Absolutely.
they're confident with that. And that is so important that
Mm-hmm.
we enable everyone to do that.
If you can, that is so beautifully put. It really is wonderful the way you've explained that, because, you know, there are lots and lots of different roles out there. That would take 10 minutes to even just touch on a few. And we're all now becoming wellbeing advocates, which I think is fine. We're not all trained in different areas of wellness. And I think sometimes, it's, we all could do with getting in the habit of recommending each other more and not trying to, explain that better. We don't all have the ability to impart that knowledge. Sometimes it needs an expert. But if you can do that as part of your role, it's almost like an onboarding element, isn't it? Where there's me trying to be a career coach now. See, I'm doing it myself. But I'm already there. I'm already picturing that. Just listening and supporting somebody is doing helping with their self care. Yes, no, I think you do a remarkable job, and I think wellness, there's a place for everybody to support each other. But we're all different, and that's why there also mustn't be pressure on everybody in every role to think they've also got to be a wellbeing therapist as well. Just to round it off, do you feel, and we've talked about not having to be an expert in wellbeing, do you sometimes feel you have to know about all the different industries out there because you've worked in a lot of different ones? Just to round this off for our listeners, do you feel sometimes you just have to know about, you have to keep up to date with all these roles, or does
No,
that not come into the equation?
no, because
No.
it's impossible, right? It's
Of
It would
course.
be an absolute fruitless task. And I guess the magic in being a coach is every single client I work with has their own answers. So I do not need
Yes.
to know about every industry and every job that is out there. It's not my place to say, right, at my 10 o'clock, well, they're going to be the next doctor. My 11 o'clock is going to be a veterinarian. My 12 o'clock, oh, they're going to open a like boutique shop. It's going to be incredible. That's not my job.
Mm.
My job is
No.
not to tell my clients what to do. It is to create space for them to explore.
Hmm.
Sometimes we will have brainstorming sessions and we will work through a number of different options. We'll look at skill sets and interests and we'll be like,
Hmm.
oh, maybe that does fit into this, or maybe it doesn't. And then they have to go and do homework, like go and look into that.
Hmm.
Like you came up with that, go and look into it. And they come back to me and tell me. I can't know everything. I can't know about every single job that's out there. I tell a
It was a
story
naughty
about
question, really.
no, I tell a story about, I guess, parents, right? So if we think of the generations that are coming up now, what parent, and this isn't that new, but it's a really good example, what parent thought their child was going to make a living making YouTube videos? What school thought a
Yes.
child was going to make money making YouTube videos or podcasts or TikTok or
Mm.
being an influencer on Instagram? So it's impossible to know, right? But we have to be open to exploring these things and
Mm-hmm.
open to those conversations. And I'm sure lots of teenagers who did start to make money on YouTube when it first came about, and you can still make money on YouTube, went to their parents and went, I'm just going to make YouTube videos all day. And they probably didn't use the word just in it. And their parents went, you're insane. You are not doing that. You are going to go and get a job at the
Mm-hmm.
grocery store down the road and you're going to do something responsible with yourself.
Exactly why it comes, back to encouraging and empowering that individual to just, and I love the word explore. We've used it a few times today, but to explore, helping people to make their dreams a reality.
Yeah.
And we can say that, and especially, and it's the way it's said and in the context, because I'm a big believer we have to have dreams. And I'm not one to say all these dreams come true, but if we don't sow that seed and we don't get in touch with, this sounds fluffy, get in touch with ourselves, get to know ourselves better from inside out, we may not actually see some of the opportunities that are actually standing right in front of us. Is there anything particular that's come out of our call today, our conversation, that you want to sort of hit home on, or is it something new? Is there a little takeaway? Because it's been real insightful. I hope it has for the listeners.
Yeah, we've covered
Mm.
so much. I just want to reiterate that word explore that we have used quite a lot, and I use in all of my coaching actually. And this is a journey of exploration, and what you're doing today, what you're doing tomorrow, what you're doing next week in terms of your career doesn't mean that's what you're going to be doing in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. Like it's this
Mhm.
continual journey, and as we go through this journey, we pick up new skills, we learn new things about ourselves, we're open to different conversations. So the picture of that
Mhm.
changes. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean we morph into doing something completely different, but we start to do things differently because we have different experiences and we have different
Yes.
understandings.
Yes.
And I'm quite open about it. In the post that you mentioned around happiness at work and passion versus competency, like if you had asked me a year ago, and I put this in the post, if you asked me a year ago, I would have firmly said, follow your passion. And now I'm a bit
Hmm.
more like, oh, yes, I want everyone to follow their passions. Yes, I want everyone to make money from their pottery they're making on their side or their
Hmm.
knitting because it brings them joy. But that's the difference, isn't it? Like, is it truly bringing them
Yes.
joy? And do they have the skills to do it really, really well? Like, I love dancing. I do not have the skills to do it well to have someone to pay me to do it. So,
Mhm.
my approach is changing as I'm
Yes, we all
learning,
evolve.
growing, and exploring. And that is the
Mhm.
same for all of us in all of our chosen fields of work, careers, jobs, whatever you want to call what you do, just keep
It's stepping
exploring,
stones, isn't it?
keep being
Sorry.
inquisitive, and keep being
Mhm.
curious, and
Mhm.
allow that.
Absolutely. No, I like that. And that's a beautiful note to end it on. And even if you're not initially driven by passion, we can actually find passion in the work we do as we develop skills and become more competent. So, you know, wonderful. Where can people find you? Where can people find you?
The best bet is to find me on LinkedIn. So you just go into the LinkedIn search box and pop in my name, Elizabeth Houghton. I will pop up. Generally speaking, I'm the first one that comes up. Yay! So yeah, just search my name. My picture is pretty up to date. So if I'm not the first one that comes up in your search, I won't be too far down that list. And like I said, it is an up-to-date picture. So hopefully you'll recognize me, and that is probably the best place to find me. If not, you can head over to my website, which is suttonfullpotential.com, and all the information about working with me and where to find me, where I hang out, is on there as well.
Lovely. And we'll put all this in the show notes anyway, Elizabeth. And thank you for correcting me. I think I was going to say Houghton. It's Houghton. Houghton. Love it. But well, thank you ever so much for your time. And I there's just a dozen more questions, but I'm going to have you back on. I'm having you back
I'll come
on.
back.
We'll talk again in the autumn, perhaps. Lovely. Well, take care of yourself, and thank you again. And remember, our show is about helping you to create healthier habits in the life you live now, until new lifestyle practices change how you live your life. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you for watching and taking time out to join us. If you enjoyed the show, it would be really great if you could leave a review, and I look forward to welcoming you back to the show next week. This has been your host, Sarah Ashley Neal.